Hello and welcome. Tonight, drama at the Federal High Court in Lagos as the suspended Central Bank Governor, Godwin is rearrested by the DSS against the order of court after being granted bail in the sum of 20 million naira. Yet another drama in the National Assembly as Senator Solomon Adiola blows hot, accuses Senator Adams Oshomole of allegation that the 9th Assembly senators carted away office furniture and equipment. The Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee raises its benchmark interest rate for the 8th consecutive time since 2022 by 25 basis points to 18.75%. And 2 Greek Air Force pilots die after a plane crashed while fighting wildfires on the Greek island of Abia.
On business news tonight, International Monetary Fund retains Nigeria's 2023 growth forecast at 3.2% on a day interest rates in Nigeria moved up to 18.75%.
On sports news tonight, Filipinos celebrate one of the biggest victories in the sporting history of the Philippines after they claimed a historic first World Cup win against New Zealand.
And from the nation's capital, the Nigeria Police Force launches emergency response mobile app for Nigerians to report real-time emergency situations and criminal activities.
It's been a day of drama right from Lagos, the nation's commercial center, where the suspended governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, the CBN, was arraigned, to the nation's capital, where 2 senators tackled each other over the items removed from their offices. Let's begin with the arraignment of the suspended CBN governor, who was today rearrested by the Department of State Services, the DSS, in contravention of a court order granting him bail in the sum of 20 million naira with one surety in like sum. The DSS had produced Mr. Emefiele at the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos for his arraignment by the federal government on a 2-count charge of illegal possession of a firearm and ammunition. Mr. Emefiele, who was seen clutching a Bible, pleaded not guilty.
Because of our delay or difficulty in perfecting the bail conditions, the prison service are under a duty and legal obligation to take him to Ikoyi prisons. Now, Ikoyi prisons is not far away. It's a government institution for incarceration. Why they want him in their own custody is what beats my imagination. But what is most devastating is the fact that you come to court, bring a man on a 2-count charge, the court sees in its discretion to grant bail, and you still want to take the person out of the custody of the court because the court has said take him to correctional center. So you are all witnesses.
I want to say with every sense of responsibility that the position of the DSS has no support whatsoever in the law. We are constrained because we do not want where there will be exchange of arms by the 2 organs of government. We may very, very reluctantly, very reluctantly allow our client to force the DSS to willfully, consciously, intentionally flout the orders of the court by taking him into their custody today. Thereafter, we will know what to do next.
We'll have more on that story later. Meanwhile, human rights lawyer Mr. Femi Falana has asked the federal government to direct the DSS to obey the order of the Federal High Court, which has granted bail to the suspended CBN Governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele. Now, in a statement, the senior advocate of Nigeria condemned the action of the DSS operatives, saying they brazenly disobeyed the orders of the Federal High Court, which admitted Mr. Godwin Emefiele to bail in respect of the offense of illegal possession of firearms. He said they did this notwithstanding the avowed commitment of the Tinubu administration to operate under the rule of law. He maintains that the security officers who attacked officials of the Ikoyi Correctional Center ought to be fished out and sanctioned, while the federal government should also ensure that the orders of the Federal High Court are obeyed forthwith. Staying with the judiciary in Kano State, the Federal High Court has set September the 22nd to deliver judgment on the case filed by former governor of the state, Abdullahi Ganduje, stopping Kano anti-graft agencies from investigating him. The court reached this decision after listening to the arguments by counsels to both parties. After the proceedings, counsel to the Kano State Public Complaints and Anti-Corruption Commission, Mr. Femi Falana, and counsel to Mr. Ganduje explained their positions to journalists.
Every Nigerian, apart from those who are covered by immunity, can be arrested and investigated and prosecuted if there is evidence. What happened so far cannot be said to be abuse of any process. The process has not even begun, so you can't say it's been abused. Do you understand me? The immunity of the governor expired on May 29. But he wants to continue to enjoy immunity in perpetuity. That's not allowed under our law. So you have to report yourself when invited. And you must be prepared to defend your integrity. But you can't come to the Federal High Court and say because you have a case where you are trying to protect your reputation, therefore you should not be arrested, or your commissioners should not be arrested, or your family members should not be arrested, or your political lieutenants, who number hundreds, should not be invited, should not be investigated, even when there are serious allegations of corruption against them. So that cannot be said to be abuse of process if you are invited to come and clear your name.
The issue of immunity ending is not a legal argument. That's a known thing. But the fact is we're not in court to stop anybody from carrying out any investigation. We are just saying do it in accordance with the four walls of the law. What they are doing is not in accordance with the four walls of the law. And that is why we are in court to say, look, do it in accordance with the four walls of the law. I mean, the applicant is not afraid to face the law. He's not afraid to state issues. He has nothing to hide. But it is just that as a leader of his family and the leader of his group, he must insist on the rule of law. And that is what he's insisting on. Let them do it right. He will be there. He will give them all the explanations that they need. And they'll commend him for a job well done in Kano State.
To the National Assembly, where another mild drama unfolded during Tuesday's plenary session as a federal lawmaker, Senator Solomon Adiola, accused his colleague, Senator Adams Oshomole, of alleging on television that senators in the 9th Assembly carted away office furniture and equipment. He says his privilege has been breached and demands that Senator Oshomole tender a public apology to the Senate. However, the matter was resolved after Senator Oshomole explained that at no time did he say senators looted their offices, rather that the offices were vandalized. Our correspondent Linda Kigbe reports.
Senators arrive in the temporary Senate chamber, all set for the first plenary session of the week. Some minutes into the proceedings, a senator representing Ogun West tables a matter before his colleagues, seeking immediate intervention. He says his privilege as a lawmaker has been breached because of comments made by his colleagues during an interview on Channels Television.
On this said program, the distinguished senator of the Federal Republic told the whole world that we looted our offices, that chairs, tables, televisions were carted away by the senators. He should come up, stand up, and apologize publicly to the Senate and to Nigerians for that comment that has been made.
The chief whip of the Senate, Senator Ali Ndume, tries to douse tensions by requesting that the Senate goes into a closed-door session to deliberate on the sensitive matter. A voice vote is called, but senators insist that the matter be discussed openly.
Those who are in support of the motion and seconded, say aye. Those against, say nay. The nays have it.
The Deputy Senate President offers some explanations, ostensibly to prevent a further escalation of tensions in the chamber.
All items in the office of each senator, every year such item depreciates to the tune of 25%. So at the end of 4 years, the book value becomes zero. Then you are given the right to either accept or reject the offer to purchase those items. So when you register your acceptance, you can now go away with those items. And you pay. You either pay through cash or through your severance gratuity.
The senator in the eye of the storm is finally given the floor to explain the comments he made on Channels Television, which has rattled his colleagues.
At no time in the course of my reply to the allegation made by the TV host, at no time did I say that senators looted their office. I never said so. And I will challenge with respect to the mover of the motion to show that clip of the Channels Television. What I said was this. I said offices were vandalized. And I said on that television, I said many senators here have had to use their money to procure basic needs for their office, because the ones that were there before were removed. But for those who feel that that's my comment, which was meant to protect our collective image, was offensive, of course I apologize.
The Senate President also explains what the 70 billion naira in the 2022 supplementary budget appropriated for the National Assembly is intended for.
What was there was real for replacements of items that had depreciated in value and had actually been boarded, and they needed to be replaced for the functionality of both chambers.
The National Assembly has over the years struggled with an unfortunate perception of being opaque in some of its operations, particularly in terms of opening up its budget. It's a perception many hope the 10th Assembly will fight to change. Linda Akibi, Channels Television News.
In part two after the break, Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee raises its benchmark interest rate for the 8th consecutive time since 2022 by 25 basis points to 18.75%. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the News at 10 coming to you live from Channels Television. A reminder of our top stories. Drama at the Federal High Court in Lagos as the suspended Central Bank Governor, Godwin Emefiele, is rearrested by the DSS against order of court after being granted bail in the sum of 20 million naira. Yet another drama in the National Assembly as Senator Solomon Adiola blows hot, accuses Senator Adams Oshomole of allegations that the 9th Assembly senators carted away office furniture and equipment. Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee raises its benchmark interest rate for the 8th consecutive time since 2022 by 25 basis points to 18.75%. And 2 Greek Air Force pilots die after a plane crash while fighting wildfires on the Greek island of Abuja. The Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee has voted to raise its benchmark interest rate for the 8th consecutive time since 2022 by 25 basis points to 18.75% in its continued efforts to cool inflation. Now, at the end of the MPC's 2-day rates decision meeting, the first under the Bola Tinubu administration, the CBN's acting governor, Shonubi, also announced a narrowing of the asymmetric corridor around the MPR to plus 100 minus 300 basis points from plus 100 minus 700 basis points. Our correspondent, Victoria Longjohn, reports.
The acting governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Folashodun Shonubi, leads senior management officials to this media briefing after chairing the first Monetary Policy Committee meeting under the administration of President Bola Tinubu. The 2-day meeting is coming at a time when inflation, high debt burden, and poor crude oil output is hitting global economies, and Nigeria is not left out.
The committee reviewed developments.
The committee voted to hike the MPR by 25 basis points to 18.75% from 18.5%, a decision that is driven by the rate of rise in inflation in the country.
Inflation across several advanced economies has continued to moderate, but remains considerably above their respective long-run objectives, even as monetary policy tightening progresses. In the emerging markets and developing economies, inflationary pressure remains broadly elevated, though there are signs of moderation in some countries. Global inflation is thus expected to remain elevated through 2023, despite broad measures by several central banks to ease the pressure.
Mr. Shonubi also stated that the committee considered the effect of the increase in interest rates on investors, hence the moderate hike. He also noted the equity market has remained bullish, which indicates investors' confidence in the market. He noted that the volatility around foreign exchange rates will soon normalize.
We need to encourage the markets to be more efficient and to be more effective, and that takes a bit of time. Some of the volatility you've seen over the period has been driven by that same fact that the market needs to find its level, and also the reality that there's pent-up demand which current supply may not be sufficient for. And as we ease and satisfy the pent-up demand, we begin to see a more efficient market that runs. But you also need to understand that the dynamics of pricing in the market, and we feel we should actually stop calling it the I&E, because it is now much more than the I&E. For us, it's a market where everybody and anybody, through the licensed institutions, can participate.
The Central Bank of Nigeria hopes to continue seeking for ways to control all inflationary indices, as well as reduce the sufferings faced by Nigerians. Victoria Longjohn, Channels Television News.
And now for more on the Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee's latest round of interest rate hike, I'm joined by the Chief Executive Officer, Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismick Rawani, on the News at 10. It's great to have you, sir, on the News at 10.
Thank you for having me.
So we've just had this latest hike in interest rates from the CBN MPC. What can you tell us from the developments of today?
Okay, we'll approach it from 4 different angles. 1, what happened? 2, why it happened? 3, what is likely to happen? And 4, finally, its impact on you. So first and foremost, the MPR was raised by 25 basis points. This is the 8th increase in 16 months. But also, the split between the doves and the hawks was almost even. In other words, those who supported an aggressive increase were almost equal to those who actually recommended a modest increase. The other thing was that the asymmetric corridor narrowed by 500 basis points. What it means that the banks will have to borrow at a rate slightly higher, but also we place money with the central bank at rates slightly lower. So that's one thing. But the unintended consequence was that we have a monetary policy stance that is tight, and we have monetary conditions that are loose. But that means that effective interest rates in Nigeria are still very low and artificially kept low. There's a negative return on against inflation of about 16%, minus 16%. What is more important that savings, national savings, which is used to make investments, has actually declined from 30% to 27% of GDP. Savings is a function of interest rates. So you've got to get your interest rate structure right, or else you have problems. Also, I think it's important to note that the whole major consideration of this was inflation. So we have this saying that inflation here, inflation there, inflation everywhere. So that's, and how do you tackle inflation? You have a couple of tools that you use, but mainly use interest rates, and also you use other deposit conditions. Now, what we've seen actually is that the interest rates, cumulative increase in the rates of interest altogether is about 7.5%, while the increase in rate of inflation is over 5%. In other words, the use of the policy rate as an antidote for inflation is not working. It's not effective. The central bank governor, acting governor, did say that it's partially working, but I think the truth is that it's not as effective as we may require. Now, one of the things that we're going to look at is inflation is at an 18-year high, and food inflation is at a peak of about 24%. But monthly inflation, which compares the price of a food basket last month with this month, as against annual inflation, where you're comparing the basket with what the price was a year ago, monthly inflation, when annualized, is giving you a rate of 28%. And those are the official numbers. But let us take a look at some of the factors, what we call the then and now analysis. A basket of tomatoes, when this administration came to power, was 55,000 naira. It had risen to 110,000 naira, and now it's at 95,000 naira. One tomato is at 200 naira, right? A tomato is even more expensive than an egg. Then you take flour. When this administration came in, the price of a bag of flour was 28,500. It has gone all the way to 32,000, and is, in fact, as of today, it's going at 35,000 naira. That will have a direct impact on the price of bread, right? So what has happened to bread? We have bread. The price of a loaf of bread was 900 naira at the end of April, May, and now it's 1,200 to 1,300. Transport fare, because of the increase in the price of petrol, the trip from Oworonchoki to Abalende was 300 at the beginning of this measure. It's now 500 naira. But the good news is that the price of cooking gas has come down. And you see that what is the point having cooking gas when there's nothing to cook? That's the big issue. So food prices up, cooking gas down. The lady has an empty pot. There's nothing to cook. Maybe to boil some water for some tea. So that's a very interesting element as well. Followed closely, what's going to happen next? I think that's important. Like we said, the most important thing is that the MPR is an anchor rate, and you must increase it, and it drags other rates with it. You can see that the MPR is up there, but effective rates are down, so you're having a negative return, and that's like a ship without an anchor. When you have a ship without an anchor, the ship goes out to sea. So what should we expect next? What we should expect next is this. The president will announce his cabinet sometime in the next month or so. There will be a supplementary budget we expect in August and September. Headline inflation will increase again to 24, 25%. The GDP growth will decline or stay flat. And one-year treasury bill rates are going to increase. If we don't increase it, then we're going to have a problem. Stock market prices will ease a little bit. Airlines will sell discount fares because of the exchange rate volatility. And the Naira will trade at about 890 to about 910 before recovering back to about 820 Naira towards the end of the quarter, but we are in for stormy weather right now. So the answer is that in the end, it's going to be some pain, some more pain, and some more pain again before the gains come early in 2024. That's it.
Well, definitely appreciate your thoughts, Mr. Bismarck Rwane, CEO of Financial Derivatives Company, and let's hope for the very best.
Yes, we have to be brutally frank about it. Thank you very much.
Still ahead on the news at 10. International Monetary Fund, IMF, retains Nigeria's 2023 growth forecast at 3.2%, as to raises in global growth outlook to 3%. Well, that's on Business News. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the news at 10. Well, let's return to our lead story on the arraignment of the suspended CBN Governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, who was today rearrested by the Department of State Services in contravention of a court order granting him bail in the sum of 20 million naira with one surety in like sum. Our judiciary correspondent, Shola Shirley, was there and has this report.
It's the first time the suspended CBN governor will be seen in public after his arrest on June 10. He was brought to the Federal High Court, Lagos, by the Department of State Services, DSS, at about 9:20 a.m. for his arraignment on a 2-count charge of illegal possession of a firearm and ammunition, and promptly led into the courtroom of Justice Nicholas Owebo. The 2-count charge was read to him, and he pleaded not guilty. Then followed arguments by his lead counsel, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Joseph Daudu, and the prosecution counsel, Nkiru Jones-Nebo, a Deputy Director of Prosecution of the Federation, on the vexed issue of whether Mr. Emefiele's bail application could be argued. The prosecution insisted that he had not been served with a copy of the bail application, but was swiftly confronted with a proof of service endorsed by the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation. In his ruling, Justice Owebo held that there was indeed evidence of service. He rejected the objections of the federal government and proceeded to hear the bail application. In his submissions, Joseph Daudu asked the court to admit his client to bail on self-recognizance or on other liberal terms, pending the hearing and determination of the trial. But the prosecution counsel opposed the request for bail. In an oral submission, the prosecutor argued that the suspended governor of the CBN is a powerful man who could intimidate witnesses. She asked the court to note that he had refused to hand in his passport, an indication of his capacity to abscond and evade his trial. After listening to both parties, Justice Owebo declined to grant bail on self-recognizance. Instead, he granted bail in the sum of 20 million naira with one surety in like sum. The surety must own a landed property in Lagos and swear to an affidavit of means. The defendant is also to deposit his international passport with the court registrar. Pending the fulfillment of all these conditions, the judge remanded the suspended CBN governor in the custody of the Ikori Correctional Center, as against the request of the FG's counsel that he be remanded in the custody of the DSS. Shortly after the court's ruling, lawyers to the federal government took their leave, declining to comment on the day's proceedings. Operatives of the DSS strategically took positions preparatory to rearresting Mr. Emefiele. His lawyers quickly raised an alarm.
We saw an avowed intention on their part to actually take him back into their custody, despite the order of court. We then called the attention of the learned trial judge, who was magnanimous to hear us. And we told him that these were our fears. So he sent for the officer in charge of the squadron that you see milling around here, armed to the teeth. And his answer was that he's under instruction to secure his safety, and therefore he's under instruction from his boss, meaning the Director General, that he should bring him back. And we said no. The judge then told him, I am now in charge. The court is in charge. He has been brought to court and we have made orders. And he has been asked to go there. Apparently seemed adamant. And he turned and left.
Attempts by the officials of the Correctional Center to take custody of the suspended CBN governor was met with resistance by the DSS, and this led to a clash. Following interventions from lawyers and other quarters, the officers of the correctional center withdrew and took their leave, paving the way for the DSS to again take custody of Mr. Emefiele.
Are constrained because we do not want where there will be exchange of arms by the two organs of government. We may very reluctantly, very reluctantly allow our client to force the DSS to willfully, consciously, intentionally flout the orders of the court by taking him into their custody.
At about 3 p.m., the drama came to an end, with the DSS leading the suspended CBN Governor away. Trial in this court has been fixed for November 14th. Shola Shoyeli, Channels Television.
In Abia State, gunmen have attacked the convoy of the State Commissioner for Trade and Investment, Mr. Chimize Ukegbu, around the Samak junction of Aba City. The incident led to the death of one policeman as well as the burning of a vehicle. Sources in the area said the gunmen had been monitoring the team and decided to launch the attack at the busy junction, which also provided them an easy route of escape, taking advantage of the busy and rowdiness of the area. The Abia State Police Command is yet to confirm the incident. So let's head to the nation's capital, where Terry Ikumi is standing by to give us the very latest from our Abuja studios. Harold Terry.
Hi, Ayo. Some cheering news, I believe. Nigerians now have the opportunity to report real-time emergency situations and criminal activities, such as kidnapping, armed robbery, and domestic violence. This is made possible with the launch of the Emergency Response mobile app by the Nigeria Police Force, which can be downloaded on both iOS and Android devices. The Acting Inspector General of Police, Mr. Olukayode Egbetokun, says this innovation will play a pivotal role in safeguarding the lives of Nigerians, as it is designed to give a 5-second response and immediate deployment of critical personnel.
The app, Police VGS Emergency Response and Reporting System, that we are unveiling today, is one of those many other apps that will be coming in the days ahead. This innovation is not just about taking advantage of technology. It represents the epitome of our commitment to the security and safety of members of the public in Nigeria. Today, I urge everyone resident in Nigeria to embrace this innovation wholeheartedly. The adoption of the Police VGS in our policing strategies and its acceptance by members of the public is expected to impact significantly on our services, as it will enable us to render timely assistance when it matters most. With the swipe of a button on your phone, as has just been demonstrated, you can now send emergency notifications directly to our dedicated team of police operatives. Our response will be swift, live, and coordinated to ensure that we reach you in the shortest possible time. Police VGS is not just an app, it's a lifeline that can make all the difference in saving lives, combating the menace of crime, and protecting our communities.
Away from security matters now, ahead of the off-cycle governorship elections in Kogi, Imo, and Bayelsa states, the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, is assuring Nigerians of an improved electoral process. Professor Yakubu admitted that there were challenges and lessons learned which the Commission is determined to overcome in order to guarantee free, fair, and credible elections. He was addressing leaders of political parties in Abuja at another meeting to review the 2023 general elections. And it's not the best of times for residents of Olodo community and its environs, as the main bridge serving them has collapsed, making it difficult for them to ply the road to do business. They are therefore appealing to the state and federal governments to, as a matter of urgency, reconstruct the Olodo Bridge on the Ibadan-Iwo Road. Meanwhile, the state government has appealed to residents of the area not to panic, as help is on the way. That's all from the nation's capital. Back to you, Ayo.
Many thanks, Terry. To company news now, Premium Trust Bank has opened its 9th branch in Akure, the Ondo State capital, as part of the move to deliver quality banking services to its customers in the state. The bank's managing director describes the journey as nothing short of the miraculous and appreciates all who made it worthwhile. For the acting governor of the state, Mr. Lucky Ayedatiwa, who was on hand to lead the cutting of the tape, a partnership with the bank would be of immense economic benefit to the state.
As part of its determination to provide quality banking services to Nigerians, the Premium Trust Bank is opening its first branch in Akure, the Ondo State capital. The acting governor of Ondo State, Mr. Lucky Ayedatiwa, leads government officials and other dignitaries to this beautiful edifice of the bank in the Alagbaka area of the main business district of Akure. In his speech, the managing director and chief executive officer of the bank, Emmanuel Emefianim, says the bank is poised to create value and provide customers with quality product and services.
And the kind of service that we render in Premium Trust is not something that we dump on the customer. We sit with the customer and we co-create the products and the service that we render, so that what we are giving you fits completely with what you want.
And as His Excellency is coming,
the acting governor of Ondo State, Lucky Ayedatiwa, expresses delight to have Premium Trust Bank in the state, considering the economic benefit derivable from their partnership.
Ladies and gentlemen, the establishment of this branch, which I was reliably informed and also mentioned right now by the MD, is the 9th branch in less than 14 months of operation. It exemplifies the trust and the confidence that investors and businesses have in our state's potential.
The cutting of the tape signals the beginning of operations in Ondo State.
And of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
The people are excited and cannot wait to start enjoying what's on offer.
We just hope that more business will come to them and they will be able to open more branches in Akure.
Premium Trust Bank commenced operations on April 19, 2022 in Port Harcourt, Rivers State. It has since spread to other parts of the country and hopes to increase its branch network by 10 before the year comes to an end.
It's now time for business news with Joker Rogers.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Aya. Today, there's more on the nation's economy. On a day, the MPC raised Nigeria's interest rates to 18.75%. The International Monetary Fund has retained Nigeria's 2023 growth forecast at 3.2%, despite bold policy reforms by the new administration. In its World Economic Outlook updates, the IMF says a gradual decline is expected in 2023 and 2024, in line with April projections reflecting security issues in the oil sector. Meanwhile, the IMF lifted global economic growth forecast to 3% from 2.8% as it advises countries to achieve sustained disinflation while ensuring financial stability. More numbers. The equities market outperformed in today's trading session, which the benchmark index rates rising by over 1%, Well, Ibong has the details of today's trading activities.
Welcome to the Stock Market Report. It was rates decision day for the Central Bank Monetary Policy Committee today, where the committee raised interest rates by 25 basis points to 18.75% from 18.5%. However, the market reaction ahead of the key rates meeting was very bullish, as the benchmark index did a 1.1% leap to 65,991 points, very close to 66,000 now, and that can happen anytime soon, and we'll cross that level last hit in 2008. Now, this positive performance was largely boosted by gains in Giregu and some of the banking stocks. Now, speaking of the banking stocks, we did see a recovery in the banking counter from the battering it had yesterday. It was up today almost 0.5%, and this is due to gains in UBA. 4 out of the tier 1 banking stocks, and I mentioned UBA, which gained 10 kobo to close at 14 naira 90 kobo. It did trade as high as 15 naira 10 kobo today. Fidelity Bank also brought their A game. Remember last week, the NGX had upgraded Fidelity Bank from a small price to a medium price stock, and this has given a lot of boost to that stock. Side news, the banking sector did get a commendation from the CBN MPC. Now, insurance, on the flip side, was negative, and this is despite gains in AXA Mansard and Coronation Insurance, while we saw Seplat driving the oil and gas index higher by 3.25%. Now, Seplat rose by 9.99% today to close at 1,539 naira 70 kobo. It added about 139 naira to its share price, big boost for that stock. Now, while corn oil, still from the oil and gas counter, led the laggard. It was down 10% today. Now, with the 25 basis points hike and the narrowing of the asymmetric corridor by the CBN MPC, this may signal less tightening to come, but we'll watch and see the impact of these on volatility in the markets and the economy. But before then, the bulls still have it. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Will Ibong.
Thanks, Will. Now a look at the closing numbers of other major global equities. That's Business News Tonight. Back to you, Aya, today.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Many thanks, Joke. Well, let's now join Simon Pusey for the day's international stories and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. 2 pilots in a plane that crashed into a hillside after dropping water on wildfires in Greece have died. Extraordinary footage from state broadcaster ERT shows the plane crashing into a hillside and bursting into flames. The Greek Air Force said a 34-year-old commander and his 27-year-old co-pilot were aboard the amphibious Canada Air CL-215 plane when it crashed over the island of Evia east of Athens. 2 helicopters were rushed to the scene to carry out a search and rescue operation. Extreme weather has been battering Italy from north to south. Wildfires are raging in Sicily after weeks of record-breaking temperatures, with local media warning that the city of Palmero is encircled by fires. Here, flames almost engulfing a main public highway. Meanwhile, northern regions are reeling from violent storms and high winds that uprooted trees and lifted roofs off buildings. In some places, tennis ball-sized hailstones injured people, damaging cars and destroying crops. China has removed Qin Gang as foreign minister less than 7 months after he was appointed to the post. Mr. Chin had been seen as a close associate of President Xi Jinping. Mr. Chin's prolonged disappearance from public view and official silence over it had fueled furious speculation. No reason was given for his removal. The role will be taken up by Communist Party Foreign Affairs Chief Wang Yi. The United States has imposed sanctions on 3 top officials of Mali's junta for their alleged involvement with the Wagner group of Russian mercenaries. Wagner fighters have been accused of committing atrocities alongside the Malian army fighting jihadists. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said civilian casualties had more than tripled since Wagner forces were deployed to Mali in late 2021. Mali's government has never officially acknowledged Wagner's presence. 2 people have been rescued alive, but 17 others found dead after the boat they were all travelling in capsized off Senegal's capital city. Divers and firefighters are still searching in Dakar a day after the vessel was first discovered. President Macky Sall has offered his heartfelt condolences to the families and loved ones of the victims, who he says were Senegalese.
Dr. Jill Biden.
U.S. First Lady Jill Biden has attended a flag-raising ceremony at UNESCO in Paris, marking Washington's official re-entry into the UN agency after a 5-year hiatus. The national anthem was sung as the Stars and Stripes was hoisted up outside UNESCO's headquarters with the Eiffel Tower in the skyline.
A symbol of our commitment to global collaboration and peace. The United States is proud to join as a member state of UNESCO. When my husband, President Biden, took office 2.5 years ago, he made a promise to the American people that he would rebuild the systems that were broken and fortify our institutions, that he would work to bring divided communities back together, and that he would put us on a path to a better, brighter future while restoring our leadership on the world stage. And he did.
And things haven't got off to the best start for Twitter's new brand X, after their workers taking down the Twitter sign at its San Francisco headquarters were forced to pause their work by police. The sign change came after Twitter owner Elon Musk rebranded the social media company to X. Workers managed to take down most of the lettering before their efforts were paused, leaving the letters E and R in place. Police in San Francisco said officers were responding to a possible unpermitted street closure and had to halt their work. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Welcome to Sports News. Coach Alan Stachik describes Tuesday's shocking win as one of the biggest victories in the sporting history of the Philippines after a side claimed a historic first World Cup win. The footballing minnows stunned co-host New Zealand 1-0, thanks to a first-half Serena Bowden header in a front of 32,357 in Wellington. And that's Sports News. It's back to you, Ayotunde.
Many thanks, Chris. And news just in tells us that the National Association of Resident Doctors, NARD, have just declared a total and indefinite strike action. Well, the resident doctors have a major set of demands, which are the immediate payment of the 2023 MRTF, the immediate release of the circular on one-for-one replacement, a payment of skipping arrears, upward review of CONMES in line with full salary restoration to the 2014 value of CONMES, payment of the arrears of consequential adjustment of minimum to the omitted doctors, a reversal of the downgrading of the membership certificate by the MDCN, and a payment of the MRTF new hazard allowance, skipping and implementation of corrected CONMES in state and tertiary health institutions. Once again, the National Association of Resident Doctors have just declared a total and indefinite strike action. And the main news again. There was some drama today at the Federal High Court in Lagos as the suspended Central Bank Governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, was rearrested by the DSS against order of the court after being granted bail in the sum of 20 million naira. That's the news at 10 tonight. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. To have a good night.